Too many resellers wait until we're actually in fall and winter to start sourcing for fall and winter, and that is a huge mistake. In this video, I'm going to break down 3 BOLOs to start buying now to sell in the coming seasons, and I'm going to give you some keywords so that you can sell them for even more money. Hey everybody, my name is Bethany, and I, along with my husband Sean, run Trash Pandas Thrift. We are a 6-figure reselling business, and here on this channel, we share with you all of our tips, tricks, and experiences, also that you can start and grow your very own reselling business too. And today, get ready for another Trash Pandas Thrift style BOLO video. So a little bit about how this is going to go. If you haven't seen it already, this is a second iteration of fall and winter BOLO brand videos in a series. Now, BOLOs, as you might have heard the term, is technically an acronym for be on the lookout for. That doesn't mean that BOLOs should only be one thing, right? Here at Trash Pandas Thrift, we think about the word BOLO in a variety of ways. That can be a BOLO brand, it can be a BOLO style, and it can be a BOLO material. And often, using certain keywords, certain style aesthetics and keywords can make an item a BOLO. And without those keywords, it may not have even been a BOLO at all. That is the beauty of this. It's not just about sourcing for specific brands to be on the lookout for. It's about styles that honestly may not have a brand tag that you hear a lot of resellers talking about. And oftentimes, my favorite BOLOs are not designer brands, and they're not even common brands either. That's why this BOLO video is going to be a good one, because I've got 3 for you today that may not fit into your common BOLO that you hear people talking about, but for me, they are my favorite things to sell and find every fall and winter, rinse and repeat, and they're only gaining traction and getting even more demand. Let's dive into it. So the first BOLO we're going to talk about is a category of jackets and coats. They are called penny lane coats. This is my absolute favorite, my favorite. When we go into fall and winter, there is no other style that I love to source more than penny lane coats. If you have never heard about what this is, it is honestly a kind of broad title for a type of coat. It usually features a longer length, usually with fur on the cuffs, fur on the collar, and sometimes you'll even have fur down the bottom all the way from the sides to down on the jacket. Now, it is very Y2K does 70s, and that is important because as we've been talking about on this channel, vintage and nostalgia, unique sells. Y2K is a super popular aesthetic, and 70s is a super popular aesthetic too. We've done videos on these style aesthetics and keywords, and I'm sure Sean can link that as well. We talked about this in a video called How Different Pop Culture Affects Style Aesthetics and Keywords as a Reseller. And this is one of those ways that this actually manifests. So a penny lane coat was kind of coined based off of a movie character called Penny Lane in a 2000s movie that was almost famous. It is a cross between a very popular 60s and 70s style jacket called an Afghan jacket or Afghan coat because it originated in Afghanistan. It is a beautiful shearling jacket or coat, and then during the Y2K, this coat was kind of crossed with Y2K styles, and the penny lane coat was born. This is everywhere right now. Absolutely everywhere. This is a style that has been up and coming for the last few years as Y2K has gotten even more popular, and right now it is huge, absolutely huge. Sometimes you will see, and I'm going to give you some BOLO brands that you can look for penny lane coats from. You'll see them listed and selling upwards of $200 or $300. Like, it's absolutely insane, you guys, and I'm hating myself for selling all of the ones that we have found before, because I would love to have one of these coming into fall and winter. 2 of my favorite brands to find these in, although again, brand doesn't matter, these will uplift the value. Vintage Betsy Johnson. No words. If you find a vintage Betsy Johnson Penny Lane coat, you have found yourself a gem. You have literally found a diamond. Insane comps across platforms for Penny Lane coats in vintage Betsy Johnson, as well as another one that's a little bit more common to find, and this is what I commonly find it in, vintage Wilson's leather. By vintage, I'm referring to most of the ones that I find are 90s or Y2K. If you find a modern one, that's fine too. It doesn't have to be vintage. Often it gets to the point where fast fashion sees certain trends that are hot and they're in demand, and they start reproducing these. They start reproducing vintage style stuff in modern brands. That nostalgia just sells. And that means if you find a Penny Lane coat and it's Nasty Gal or it's H&M, I mean like fast fashion, I would still pick that up depending on your cost of goods. This is not just a vintage bolo. This is something that across brands is a style that is so hot, but you need certain keywords in your title to make it sell. And I'm going to give you the ones that you absolutely need. Use these. Of course, you are going to want to use Penny Lane. That is like the shining star. 70s. Y2K. Afghan is a really good one, shearling, as well as hippie. Since it's super inspired by the 70s and the 60s hippie movement, that's another great one that I often don't see a lot of people using. All of these, coupled with the Penny Lane style, is a huge, huge bolo for fall and winter. And if you've never heard of it, keep your eye out. I know I am. Okay, the next one is a type of sweater, fisherman sweaters. Fisherman sweaters year after year are a seller for us, and they often have a higher average sales price than other sweaters, even if they're from designer brands. A fisherman sweater, I did a little of research on it because I find history really cool. So if I dive a little bit too deep into the origins of things, that's just because I'm a little bit of a nerd and you can skip right past me. But fisherman sweaters were designed as cold weather essentials for fishermen and farmers in the Aran Islands off the coast of Ireland. That is why, as we'll talk about later, they're traditionally knit, right? They are traditionally knit and passed down. These are very thick sweaters. A fisherman sweater is a specific style. We're going to be posting some pictures, and honestly, I'm sure you've probably seen this in your thrift stores at the Goodwill outlet and probably didn't even realize that it was a style called a fisherman sweater. There are certain things that add value. These are honestly really cool because they relate to the history of why they were made. Things like made in Ireland adds a ton of value to a fisherman sweater because they are historically Irish made. Now, they don't have to be, right? It's just something that adds value. Another thing that adds value is Shetland wool. You're going to want to find your fisherman sweaters in that wool material. This is a very material plus style based bolo. Now, great brands to look for, and it's not just brand specific, right? Are Aran Crafts and Vintage LL Bean. I love, love, love finding vintage LL Bean fisherman sweaters. This means that, yeah, there are some great vintage bolos, but modern does well too. I have found Ralph Lauren fisherman sweaters, and those are awesome too. Aran Crafts, Aran Sweater Market is another great one off the top of my head. And the keywords to use are exactly like what comes to mind when you're thinking about describing it. You're of course going to want to use fisherman in your title because it is just a style that adds so much value. Cable knit is another good one. Some of them have a diamond knit. If you have a cable knit or a diamond knit, put that in your title. And the other keywords that we've talked about on this channel for sweaters apply, and they apply even more. I'm thinking off the top of my head like keywords such as heavy, thick, and grandpa. If you haven't seen already, go check out our first fall bolo and winter bolo video. We went through 3 brands and styles, and grandpa sweaters were one of them. We haven't done a video yet about grandpa core as a style aesthetic. However, oftentimes I do think that some fisherman sweaters, especially when they have that chunky, oversized retro look, can definitely fit in the grandpa aesthetic too. This is a great style to be on the lookout for, and It's honestly a style that if you didn't know about that keyword, you might be selling your items for way too little, because just adding that into your title can add even more value to your fisherman sweaters, to your item. Now, the third bolo is, I already said the first one's my favorite, so I can't say another one's my favorite, but I like it a lot. This is gonna be animal sweaters. And I mean it, animal sweaters. Unique, novelty print, and vintage sells. I have like hammered this like harder than I probably should, but unique sells. In the secondhand market, we are very style-based sourcers here at Trash Pandas Thrift. And I don't mean to say that style wins over brand every time, because if I'm finding a great brand, I'm putting it in my cart. I'm buying that too. However, I realize, and so do a lot of secondhand buyers, that a lot of items are mass produced and they look the same. Unique items, for that reason, are a huge style bolo, and animal sweaters are my favorite one that almost goes undetected at my local Goodwill outlet every fall and every winter. And I mean animal sweaters. Like, there could be different animals on it. We'll go into each one. Now, in my head, the favorite type of animal sweater that I personally can find is going to be a farm one. I'm thinking cows and other farm animals on a sweater. Maybe it has little pictures of houses and mailboxes. Just a really wholesome farm sweater with all of those farm animals. And immediately when I see a sweater like that, I am thinking that is cottagecore gold, because it is. And once you have that unique style and you insert cottagecore in your title, you have found a bolo. You have found a gem. Another great keyword for farm and cows and chickens and all of those style animal sweaters is farm core. You could even do granny core. Those are amazing keywords, amazing style aesthetics that I sell year over year, every fall, every winter, that people just look past. And I'm like, give it to me. Give me all of the cows. I want cows all over a sweater. And I mean that, because that is something that adds value. All over prints in general add a ton of value to items, and all over prints in animal sweaters will add value too. If you have cows and chickens and sheep everywhere on that sweater, you're gonna fetch even more money. The louder the print, the better, right? The more unique, the better. The more different your item is, the better. I've seen animal sweaters sell upwards of $100 with no great brand, truly just vintage. And one of my favorite vintage brands to find this is, I just forgot the name of it. I didn't even write this one down. I think it was Vintage Northern Isles. Is so good. It is so good. And oftentimes they even have a little tag. This is another thing that can add a ton of value if your sweater is hand knit. If it is knit by hand. And one of the reasons I love finding vintage Northern Isles 90s style sweaters is because they have a little tag. If it was hand knit, it says hand knit. That is another keyword that you need to put in your title. If your sweater is hand knit too, hand knit plus cottage core, it's like a match. That's a love match. Together you have found gold. Now, it doesn't only have to be farm animals, right? It could be any type of animals. And there's keywords you can use depending on the type of animal that will add even more value. Like, for example, horses, right? What has been so huge this year? Western, cowboy, cowgirl core. If I find a horse sweater or an equestrian style sweater, I am grabbing that baby and I'm taking it home, and using keywords like Western, cowboy, and cowgirl, you just found yourself a bolo that other people probably don't even know about. And that is why these types of bolos are awesome, because they fly under the radar. They are one of my favorites. Okay, so cows, horses, and one of my favorites is cats. Anything cats. I absolutely love finding cat sweaters. And again, the louder, the more unique, the better. This is another example of a sweater that could fall into the retro, the wacky, and the granny core keyword aesthetic. Those are all keywords I would use in your title depending on your item. Animals sell. Like, novelty prints just sell, animals sell in the fall and the winter, animal sweaters. Look it up on eBay and Depop, sort by highest to lowest, and be amazed. You're gonna find that those all over prints do best, of course, but even just a sweater with some 3D cats on it, you found yourself a $30 sweater, and other people could just leave it behind without even knowing. This is our bread and butter, year after year, unique in any category. That is why all that we went over today might not be exactly what you thought of when I said BOLOs, right? But they so are. BOLOs are not just one thing. And the second that I realized that, our business was changed forever. It transformed the way I source, and I see value in something that other people may not. And it's the best feeling, which is why I want to share that with you too. Okay, so those are the 3 that we went over today. I'm going to review them real quick. We went over Penny Lane coat, 70s and Y2K style shearling and Afghan coats. We went over Fisherman sweaters, so good. And the third one we went over were animal and novelty print animal sweaters. Those are the 3 BOLOs, styles, brands, and materials that I wanted to share with you today. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you like this kind of content, this is exactly what we're all about. We are about sharing information and just our experiences over the years, BOLOs that maybe you never heard of, and different ways to resell that honestly maybe a lot of people aren't talking about, and I want to start us talking about it. So if you like this kind of content, subscribe down below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.